I put the bus pass and job applications on the kitchen table in front of my daughter and watched her face go from entitled expectation to complete shock. She had just demanded, not asked, but demanded that I give her my car for her 18th birthday, the only car I own, the car I need to get to both of my jobs. She was wearing $150 jeans that I had bought her 2 months ago and holding the phone that I pay $90 a month for, and she was looking at me like I owed her a car. Like the 18 years I had spent raising her alone, working 2 jobs so she could have dance classes and new phones and nice clothes. Like none of that mattered, because other kids at her school got cars for their birthdays, and she deserved one too. I watched her stare at that bus pass and those job applications, and I waited for her to say something. Anything. But before I tell you what she said, before I tell you how we got here and what happened next, you need to understand the 18 years that led to this moment. You need to know about the sacrifices and the choices and the 1,000 small decisions that I thought were helping her, but were actually creating this person who could stand in my kitchen and demand my car. My name is Jennifer, and I became a single mother when I was 24 years old. My daughter Emma's father left when I was 6 months pregnant. Just packed his things one Saturday morning and said he was not ready to be a dad. Said he needed to find himself. I never heard from him again. No child support, no birthday cards, no phone calls, just gone. So I raised Emma alone from the day she was born. I had a job as a receptionist at a dental office, making $28,000 a year. That was not enough to live on with a baby. So I got a second job working evenings at a department store, doing inventory and stocking shelves. I worked the dental office from 8 to 5, came home and fed Emma and put her to bed, then went to the department store from 7 to midnight. I did that for 3 years until I got promoted to office manager at the dental office and could quit the evening job. Those early years were hard in ways I did not know humans could be hard. I was exhausted all the time, not regular tired, the kind of tired where you fall asleep standing up at the kitchen counter making a bottle, where you cry in your car before going into work because you just need 5 minutes to fall apart before pretending to be functional. I had no social life. My friends from college slowly stopped calling because I could never go out. I could never afford a babysitter, and I had no family nearby to help. I lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Emma slept in a crib in the bedroom, and I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old building with no elevator. I carried Emma and groceries and laundry and a stroller up and down those stairs so many times. I had permanent pain in my knees by the time she was 2. Money was so tight those first years that I had a system for groceries. I would buy the cheapest version of everything: store-brand formula, store-brand diapers. I would calculate the cost per ounce of everything to make sure I was getting the best deal. I clipped coupons from the newspaper. I shopped sales. I made every dollar stretch as far as it would go. I wore the same 4 work outfits for 3 years, rotated them through the week, washed them on weekends. When something wore out, I would try to fix it before buying a replacement. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror. I walked to work when the weather was okay to save gas money. I lived like a monk so Emma could have what she needed. But Emma was a happy baby. She smiled easily, laughed at everything, loved being held. I would come home from work exhausted, and she would reach her little arms up, and everything else would fade away. I loved her so completely it was almost painful. I was determined to give her a good life, even without a father, even with no money, even with no help. When Emma was 3, I moved us to a better apartment, 2 bedrooms, so she could have her own room. It cost more, but I was making a little more as office manager, and I wanted her to have space. I bought her a toddler bed shaped like a car. It was on clearance, but she loved it. I painted her room yellow and put up stickers of butterflies. I wanted her room to be happy and bright. She started preschool that year, 3 mornings a week. It cost $120 a month, which I barely had. But the social worker at the community center said it was important for development. So I picked up weekend shifts at the department store again, worked Saturdays from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., spent all my weekend morning hours stocking shelves so Emma could go to preschool and play with other kids and learn her letters. I thought I was doing everything right. I read parenting books from the library. I made sure she had healthy food, even though it was more expensive than junk food. I read to her every night before bed, even when I was so tired I could barely see the words on the page. I played with her on the floor even when my back ached from being on my feet all day. I was present. I was loving. I was doing my best. When she was 5, she saw a dance class through the window of a studio near the grocery store. She pressed her face against the glass, watching the little girls in leotards and tutus. She said, "Mommy, I want to do that." I looked at the sign in the window. Classes were $65 a month. I did not have $65 a month for dance classes, but she looked so excited, so hopeful. I went inside and talked to the woman at the desk, asked if there were any scholarships or payment plans. She said they had a program for low-income families that reduced the cost to $30 a month. I signed Emma up, picked up extra shifts to cover it. She started dance class the next week, and it was like watching magic. She loved it immediately. She was good at it. She practiced in our living room every day. She talked about dance constantly. Dance became her whole world, and I was happy about that because she was happy. She had found something she was passionate about, something that gave her joy and confidence. So I supported it. I paid for classes. I bought her dance shoes when she outgrew them. I made sure she never missed a class. When she was 7, her dance teacher said she had real talent, said she should take more classes, maybe join the competition team. I met with the teacher after class. The competition team meant 3 classes a week instead of 1. It meant costume fees and competition entry fees and travel costs. The teacher showed me the fee schedule. It would be around $300 a month, all included. I did not have $300 a month. I was still working 2 jobs and barely covering rent and food and basic expenses. But the teacher said Emma really had potential, that it would be a shame to waste her talent. That dance could lead to scholarships for college someday. That word, scholarships, that was what made me say yes. I thought if Emma got good enough at dance, she could get a scholarship to college. She could have opportunities I never had. So I said yes to the competition team. I picked up more hours at work. I stopped buying anything for myself. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches so Emma could have balanced meals. I wore shoes with holes in them. I did not go to the doctor when I was sick because I could not afford the copay. But Emma was thriving. She won her first competition when she was 8, got a trophy taller than she was. She was so proud. She slept with that trophy next to her bed. And I was proud too. Proud that I had made it possible, that my extra shifts and my sacrifices had given her this. The costs kept increasing. By the time she was 10, she was taking 5 dance classes a week, private lessons twice a month, competing almost every weekend during competition season. The fees were close to $500 a month. I took a 3rd job, cleaning houses on Sundays. I worked 7 days a week. I saw Emma in the evenings for a few hours, and that was it. I was constantly exhausted, constantly stressed about money. But I told myself it was worth it. I never said no to dance expenses. Never. Even when it meant I could not pay my electric bill on time and had to call and beg for an extension. Even when it meant I skipped meals so there was enough food for Emma. Even when it meant I cried in my car from stress and exhaustion. I always found a way to make it work because dance was her dream and I was going to make her dreams come true. Looking back now, I can see that this was where I started to go wrong. I was teaching her that she could have whatever she wanted, and I would make it happen. That her dreams were more important than practical realities. That my needs did not matter. But I did not see it then. I just saw a talented little girl who loved dance and a mother who was making it possible. When Emma was in 5th grade, all the girls at school started getting cell phones. She came home crying one day because everyone had phones except her. They were all in a group chat, and she was left out. She felt excluded and sad. I did not have money for a cell phone. I was still using a basic flip phone I had bought 5 years earlier, but I could not stand seeing her cry. I went to the phone store and asked about their cheapest smartphone. The salesperson showed me one that was free with a 2-year contract. But the monthly plan was $90. I was already so tight on money. I did not know how I would cover another $90 a month. But Emma was so unhappy, so left out, and I had the power to fix it. I signed the contract, added $90 a month to my expenses, picked up another house cleaning job. Emma was thrilled. She hugged me and said I was the best mom in the world, and I felt good, like I had done the right thing. But that was the moment I should have said no. That was the moment I should have explained that we could not afford it. That sometimes we have to be okay with not having what everyone else has. That being left out of a group chat was not the end of the world. But I did not say any of that. I just said yes and figured out how to make it work. Middle school started, and Emma wanted to fit in with the popular girls. She started asking for specific brands of clothes, expensive jeans, name brand shoes, designer backpacks, P4. I tried to explain that we could not afford those things, that we could get similar items for less money. She cried, said she would be made fun of, said everyone would know we were poor. I hated that word, poor. I worked 3 jobs. We had an apartment and food, and she had dance classes and a phone. We were not poor. We were just not rich. But to Emma, not having what the wealthy kids had meant, we were poor, and she was embarrassed. I started buying her the expensive clothes. Not all the time, but sometimes. For her birthday, or Christmas, or when she really wanted something, I would put it on my credit card and pay it off slowly. The credit card debt grew. $500, $1,000, $2,000. I was paying minimum payments, and the interest was eating me alive. But Emma had the jeans she wanted, and she was happy. I told myself this was temporary, that once she was older, she would understand, that giving her a good childhood was worth going into debt. But the debt kept growing, and Emma kept wanting more things, and I kept saying yes. Somewhere around age 13, Emma stopped helping around the house. When she was younger, she had chores. She made her bed every morning. She set the table for dinner. She put her dirty clothes in the hamper. She helped fold laundry, but as she got busier with dance and school and friends, those chores fell away. At first, I asked her to do them. She would say she was too busy, that she had homework or dance practice or plans with friends. I would ask her to do it later. She would forget or claim she was too tired. Eventually, I just started doing everything myself. I would come home from work and Emma would be in her room, on her phone, or at dance practice. I would cook dinner and clean up, do the laundry, clean the bathroom, vacuum, all the household tasks. I told myself she was busy, that her education and activities were more important than chores, that I could handle it. But what I was actually teaching her was that someone else would always clean up after her, that her time was more valuable than mine, that she did not need to contribute to the household. I did not see it as a problem then. I saw it as being supportive, as making her life easier, so she could focus on important things. By the time she was 15, Emma had stopped saying thank you. I would buy her something she asked for, and she would just take it, like it was expected. Like I was a vending machine that dispensed items when she pushed the right buttons. I started to notice this. started to feel hurt by it. But I told myself it was normal teenage behavior, that teenagers were self-centered, that she would grow out of it. She started expecting things. New phone every 2 years when the contract was up, money for going out with friends every weekend, new dance costumes for every competition, expensive makeup and hair products, subscriptions to streaming services. Everything cost money, and she expected me to provide it all. I tried to set some boundaries, told her she could not have everything she wanted. She would get upset, cry or yell or give me the silent treatment, and I would cave, because I could not stand the conflict, because I was too tired to fight, because it was easier to just say yes. Her 16th birthday was a turning point, though I did not realize it at the time. She wanted a big party. All her friends were having big parties at venues with DJs and catering. She showed me pictures from her friends' parties. They looked like wedding receptions. I asked how much these parties cost. She did not know, did not care, just knew she wanted one. I looked into it. To rent a venue and hire a DJ and get food for 50 people would cost about $1,500. I did not have $1,500. I had credit card debt and rent and utilities and dance fees. But Emma really wanted this party. She said it was a milestone birthday, that everyone would remember their 16th birthday party forever. I put it on my credit card, rented a nice venue, hired a DJ, bought decorations and a fancy 3-tier cake, invited all her friends and their parents. It was a beautiful party. Emma looked happy. She was laughing and dancing with her friends. But she complained the whole night. The cake was vanilla when she wanted chocolate. I had forgotten to hire a photographer, so there were no professional photos. The DJ played some songs she did not like. Her friends' parties had been better. She made sure to tell me this multiple times. I went home after the party and cried in my bedroom. I had just spent $1,500. I did not have to give her a party, and all she could do was complain about what was wrong with it. I felt used, unappreciated, hurt. But the next day, I told myself I was being too sensitive, that 16-year-olds were critical and self-centered, that she would appreciate it when she was older. I pushed down my hurt feelings and moved on. She got her driver's license at 16, started asking to borrow my car. At first, it was just occasionally. She needed to get to dance practice or meet friends at the mall. I said yes, because I understood wanting independence. But I gave her rules. Come home by 10 p.m. on weeknights and midnight on weekends. No texting while driving. Fill up the gas tank if you use more than a quarter tank. Call me if there are any problems. She agreed to the rules, then immediately broke all of them. She would come home at 11 or 1 a.m. with excuses. Traffic. Lost track of time. Friend needed help with something. I would tell her the rule was 10 p.m. She would say the rules were unreasonable, that none of her friends had such early curfews. I would find texts on her phone that were sent while she was driving. When I confronted her, she said everyone texts while driving, that it was not a big deal, that I was overreacting. I explained that car accidents were the leading cause of death for teenagers. She rolled her eyes. The gas tank thing was the worst. I would get in my car to go to work and the tank would be on empty. I would have to stop for gas on my way to work and be late. I talked to Emma about it many times. She always said she forgot, that she would do better, then she would do it again. I should have taken the car away. Should have said if you cannot follow the rules, you cannot use the car. But I did not, because taking the car away would mean she could not get to dance practice easily. Would mean she would ask me for rides. And I was already stretched so thin with work, it was easier to just let it go and fill up the gas tank myself. I was teaching her that rules did not matter, that she could break agreements without consequences, that my needs, like having gas in my car, were less important than her convenience. But I did not see it that way. I just saw a busy teenager who was forgetful and a tired mother who did not have energy to fight. Her senior year started, and college became the main topic. She wanted to go to a university 3 hours away, a good school with a strong dance program. I looked at the costs. Tuition was $45,000 a year. Room and board was another $15,000, $60,000 a year, for 4 years. I sat Emma down and explained that we could not afford that school, that we would need significant financial aid or scholarships, that she should also apply to state schools that were less expensive. She said she did not want to go to a state school, that this university had the best dance program, that she deserved to go to her top choice school. I said deserving something and being able to afford it were different things. She said other parents found a way to pay for college. I said other parents had more money than I did. She said I should have saved more, that it was my responsibility as her parent to pay for her education. I felt like I had been slapped. I had worked 3 jobs for years to give her everything. I had gone into debt for dance and clothes and parties. I had sacrificed everything. And she was telling me I should have saved more. Like the money I spent on her could have been saved for college if I had just been smarter with money. I tried to explain, tried to tell her how much I had spent on dance over the years, how much I had spent on her phone and clothes and activities, how I had been paying the minimum on credit cards for years because I could not afford more. She did not want to hear it. She said those were my choices, that she never asked to be born, that it was my job to provide for her. I dropped the conversation, applied for financial aid, hoped for scholarships. Emma applied to the expensive university and got accepted. Her financial aid package covered about half. She would need to take out loans for the rest, $25,000 a year in loans. I tried to explain that graduating with $100,000 in debt would be crushing. She said everyone had student loans, that it was fine. I did not know what else to do. She was going to this school no matter what I said. So I signed the loan papers as her co-signer, committed to being responsible for $100,000 of debt, for a dance degree that probably would not lead to a high-paying job. Around Christmas of her senior year, her friends started getting cars for their birthdays. These were not used cars. These were new or nearly new SUVs and sedans, expensive vehicles with all the features. Emma came home from school one day and mentioned casually that Madison got a new SUV for her birthday, that it had a backup camera and leather seats. I said that was nice. Emma said she wanted a car for her 18th birthday in March. I thought she was joking. I laughed. We had one car between us, a 10-year-old sedan that I had bought used 5 years ago. It had 140,000 miles on it, and the air conditioning barely worked, and the radio only played CDs. But it was paid off, and it was reliable, and it got me to work every day. I said, Emma, honey, we cannot afford to buy you a car. She looked genuinely shocked, like this possibility had never occurred to her. She said, but everyone is getting cars for their 18th birthday. I said everyone's family situation is different. We do not have the money for a car. She said, what was she supposed to do then? How was she supposed to get around? I said, you can take the bus or save up and buy your own car. She stared at me like I had suggested she walk across hot coals. Take the bus? Like a poor person? I felt my patience snap. I said, Emma, we are not poor, but we are also not rich. We have one car. I need it for work. If you want a car, you will need to buy it yourself. She said, how was she supposed to buy a car when she did not have a job? I said, get a job. She said she could not work during senior year. She was too busy with school and dance. I said, then you are too busy for a car. She went silent, did not speak to me for 3 days. Just complete silent treatment, walking past me like I did not exist, going to her room and closing the door when I tried to talk to her. Finally, she started speaking to me again. But she brought up the car constantly, at least once a week, showed me pictures of cars her friends got, talked about how embarrassing it was that she did not have a car, made comments about how I clearly did not care about her happiness or her social life. Every time she brought it up, I said the same thing. I cannot afford a car. If you want one, get a job and save for it. She acted like this was the most unreasonable thing she had ever heard. Like expecting her to work for something she wanted was cruel and unusual. I held firm, but it was exhausting. The constant pressure, the guilt trips, the comparisons to her friends' parents. I started to dread coming home because I knew she would find a way to bring up the car, to make me feel like I was failing her. Then, about a month before her birthday, she changed tactics. She started being nice to me, helping around the house without being asked, doing dishes, folding laundry, asking about my day, saying thank you when I bought groceries. I should have known it was manipulation, but I wanted to believe she was maturing, that she was finally starting to appreciate me. 2 weeks before her 18th birthday, she sat me down and said she wanted to talk. She said she had been thinking about the car situation, that she understood I could not afford to buy her a car. She said she appreciated everything I did for her, and she was sorry for being difficult. I felt relief. Finally she understood. But then she said she had a compromise. What if I gave her my car and I took the bus to work? She said it would actually help me financially. I could save the money I spent on car, insurance, and gas. I could use that money for other things. It was a win-win. I stared at her. I said, Emma, I need my car for work. I work at a dental office that is not on a bus line. I work evening shifts at houses all over the city. I cannot do my jobs without a car. She said I could figure it out. Maybe ask coworkers for rides. Maybe find different jobs closer to home. Maybe I did not even need 2 jobs anymore since she was almost an adult. I said no. The car is mine. I need it. She got angry, said I was being selfish, that other parents made sacrifices for their kids, that clearly I loved my car more than I loved her. I tried to stay calm. I said, this is not about love. This is about practicality. You want something I cannot give you. She said I was just making excuses, that if I really wanted to help her, I would find a way. I said, Emma, you are asking me to give up my car, so you do not have to take the bus. That is not reasonable. She said it was not about the bus. It was about being treated like she mattered, about me showing I cared. I felt something break inside me. I had worked myself to exhaustion for 18 years to show I cared. I had gone into debt. I had given up everything. And she was standing there telling me I did not care because I would not give her my only car. I said this conversation is over. She stormed off to her room, slammed the door. I heard her on the phone with her friends, talking loudly so I would hear, saying what a terrible mother I was, how everyone else's parents gave them cars, how I was ruining her life. I sat in the living room and wondered how we had gotten here, how the sweet little girl who used to hug me and say I was the best mommy in the world had become this person who thought I owed her a car. I knew the answer. I had created this. By saying yes to everything, by never setting boundaries, by teaching her that her wants were the most important thing. Her 18th birthday was on a Saturday. I had taken the day off from both jobs. I wanted to spend time with her. I made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with chocolate chips and whipped cream, bacon, fresh fruit. I set the table nicely with a tablecloth and flowers, put up some decorations. I had bought her a present, a nice watch she had mentioned wanting a few months ago. It was not expensive, but it was thoughtful. I had it wrapped and sitting at her place at the table. I thought maybe we could have a nice morning. Maybe the tension about the car could be set aside for her birthday. I was naive. Emma came into the kitchen around 9 a.m. She was wearing those $150 jeans I had bought her for Christmas, designer jeans that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. She was holding her phone, the phone I paid $90 a month for. Her hair and makeup were done perfectly with products I had bought her. She looked at the birthday breakfast I had made, looked at the decorations and the wrapped present, and she said, "Where are my car keys?" Not good morning, not thank you for breakfast, not even happy birthday to me. Just where are my car keys? Like she had ordered a car and it was being delivered, and she was checking on the delivery status. I felt something shift inside me, something fundamental. I said, "Emma, we have talked about this. I am not giving you a car." She said, "No. Where are the keys to your car?" I told her I wanted the car for my birthday. I said, "Emma, that is my car. I need it." She said I could take the bus. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was serious. She genuinely expected me to hand over the keys to my car, to take the bus to both my jobs, to rearrange my entire life because she wanted a car for her birthday. And she was not asking. She was demanding, like it was her right. She said everyone else's parents give them cars when they turn 18, that it was my responsibility as her mother to provide for her. She said it was not fair that all her friends had cars and she did not, that I was making her life harder than it needed to be. I stood up, walked to the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept random useful things. I opened it. Inside was a bus pass I had purchased 3 days ago, and 3 job applications I had printed out from local businesses that were hiring. A coffee shop 2 blocks away, a retail store at the mall, a restaurant near the dance studio. I took out the bus pass and the applications. I walked back to the table. I put them down in front of Emma. I said, "This is your birthday present." She stared at them, looked up at me, said, "What is this?" I said, "It is a bus pass and job applications." She said, "What are you talking about? Where is my real present?" I pointed at the wrapped box. I said, "That is your real present. This is also your real present." She picked up the bus pass like it was contaminated, said, "I do not want this. I want the car." I said, "I know what you want, but you are getting this instead." She said, "This is a joke, right? That I was going to give her the car and this was just some stupid lesson first?" I said, "No, I am not giving you my car. Ever." She stood up, her voice got loud, said this was ridiculous, that I could not do this to her, that every other parent gave their kids cars. I said, "I am not every other parent, and you are not every other kid." She said, "What did that mean?" I said, "It means you have never worked for anything in your life. You have never earned money. You have never paid a bill. You have no idea what anything costs because I have protected you from reality." She said that was my job as her mother, to protect her. I said yes, but I protected you too much. I gave you everything you wanted, and I never taught you to work for anything. So now you are 18 and you think you deserve a car just because you want one. She said she did deserve it, after everything she had been through, having no father, having a mother who worked all the time. I felt anger rise in my chest. I said, "Emma, I worked all the time so you could have dance classes and nice clothes and a phone. I worked myself to exhaustion so you could have opportunities. And you are standing here acting like I neglected you." She said, "I did neglect her, emotionally, because I was never around." I wanted to scream. I wanted to list every sacrifice, every time I went without so she could have, every hour I worked so she could take dance. But I knew it would not matter. She could not hear it. So I said something different. I said, "You are right. I was not around as much as I should have been because I was working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs to pay for your life. And I am done. I am done paying for dance. I am done paying for your phone. I am done buying you expensive clothes. You are 18 now, an adult. And adults work for what they want." She said I could not make her quit dance. She had been dancing for 13 years. I said, "I am not making you quit, but I am not paying for it anymore." If you want to keep dancing, you can get a job and pay for it yourself. The same goes for your phone and your clothes, and anything else you want. She started crying, said I was ruining her life, that this was the worst birthday ever, that I was a terrible mother. She grabbed her phone and called one of her friends, asked if she could come over. I said, "How are you getting there?" She stopped, looked at me with pure hatred, then looked at the bus pass on the table, grabbed it, and walked out the front door without another word. I sat at the kitchen table with the birthday pancakes going cold, and I cried. Not because I felt bad about what I did, but because I realized how much damage I had already done. How I had thought providing material things was the same as being a good mother. But what Emma actually needed was boundaries, responsibilities, the experience of earning things and failing at things and learning she was capable. For 18 years, I had protected her from struggle, from disappointment, from having to work for anything. And it had created this person who could stand in my kitchen on her birthday and demand my car like it was her right. She came home 6 hours later, went straight to her room without speaking to me. I let her be. I cleaned up the breakfast that no one ate. I wrapped up her birthday present and put it in her room while she was in the bathroom. I sat in the living room and thought about what came next. This was not going to be easy. Emma was not going to accept this change gracefully. There would be fights, there would be tears and accusations, and probably weeks of silent treatment. But I knew this was necessary. I should have done it years ago. But better late than never. That night around 10 p.m., she came out of her room. She was calmer. She sat on the couch. She said we needed to talk. I said, okay. She said she had been thinking and she had a new proposal, a compromise. What if she got a part-time job and saved up for part of a car, and I paid for the other part? Like, we could split it 50-50. I said no. She said, why not? That was a compromise. I said because I cannot afford to pay for half a car, and also because you need to learn that you cannot negotiate your way into getting what you want. Sometimes the answer is just no. She said that was not fair, that I was being unreasonable. I said, Emma, do you know how much I make per hour at my jobs? She looked uncomfortable, said no. I told her. She did the math in her head. Her eyes got wide. She said, that is less than I thought. I said, I know. She said, how do you afford everything? I said, I work a lot of hours, and I am very careful with money, and I go without things so you can have things. She was quiet for a minute. Then she said, okay, but still, all her friends had cars. It was embarrassing not having one. I said, I understand it feels embarrassing, but embarrassment will not kill you. And your friends' family situations are different from ours. She said, how? I said they likely have 2 parents with 2 incomes. They likely have less debt. They likely have different priorities. 12. She said, so I just have to suffer because we are poor. I felt that anger again. I said, we are not poor, Emma. We have a home. We have food. You have had dance classes for 13 years. You have a phone and nice clothes and every opportunity I could give you. Just because we do not have as much as the wealthiest families at your school does not make us poor. She said, well, we are not rich. I said, no, we are not rich. We are working class. I work hard to pay our bills. I work hard to give you opportunities, and you have never once appreciated it. She said that was not true. She appreciated things. I said, really? Name one time in the last 6 months you thanked me for anything without me asking for thanks. She went quiet, could not think of anything. I said, you live in a home I pay for. You eat food I buy. You wear clothes I bought. You use a phone I pay for every month. You took dance classes I paid for 13 years. You have never had a job. You have never earned $1. You have never helped pay for anything. And you have never said thank you unless I specifically asked if you were going to. She said she was a student. Students were not supposed to work. I said that is not true. Plenty of students work. I worked when I was in high school. I had a job at a fast food place, 20 hours a week while taking a full course load. She said that was different. I said, how? She had no answer. I said, Emma, you are 18 now, an adult by law, and it is time you learned how the world actually works. The world does not give you things just because you want them. You have to work. You have to earn. You have to be grateful for what you have. She said the world works by parents helping their kids. I said helping, yes. Giving them everything they demand without requiring any effort? No. She said, I was just being mean because I was jealous. She had opportunities I did not have growing up. That cut deep. I took a breath. I said, I am not jealous, Emma. I am proud that you had a better childhood than I did. I am glad you got to take dance and have nice things. But part of having a good childhood is also learning responsibility, learning gratitude, learning that you are capable of working and earning. And I failed to teach you those things. So, I am teaching you now. She said she did not want to learn. She just wanted a normal life like her friends. I said getting a job and working for things is normal. Expecting your single mother to give you a car she cannot afford is not normal. She said this was so stupid that she hated me. She went back to her room and slammed the door. The next few weeks were brutal. Emma barely spoke to me. She took the bus to school and dance, complained constantly to anyone who would listen about how long it took, how unreliable the bus was, how cold it was waiting at bus stops, how embarrassing it was. I let her complain, did not engage. I also stopped giving her money, told her if she wanted money for going out with friends or buying things, she needed to get a job. She said she was too busy with school and dance. I said, then you are too busy for spending money. She tested this, asked me for $20 to go to a movie with friends. I said no. She got angry. I stayed firm. She went to her friend's house and the friend's mom gave her money for the movie. Emma came home and told me this, like it proved something. I said that was kind of her friend's mom, but I am not giving you money anymore. If you want money, you need to work for it. She lasted about a week and a half before she came to me asking for $40 for a concert. I said no. She said, why not? She had already told her friends she was going. I said you should not have done that without having the money first. She said this was so unfair. Everyone else's parents just gave them money. I said I am not everyone else's parent. She said fine. She would just not go to the concert. She would stay home alone while all her friends had fun. She would tell everyone it was because her mom was too cheap to give her $40. I said, okay. She seemed shocked that I was not crumbling. She went to her room. I heard her crying. Part of me wanted to give in, to give her the $40 so she could go to the concert. But I knew that would undo everything. She needed to learn this lesson. So I stayed firm. 3 weeks after her birthday, she came home from dance and mentioned that her dance friend worked at a smoothie shop near the studio that they were hiring, that the manager was nice and they were flexible with student schedules. I said, that sounds perfect. You should apply. She said she was not going to apply. I said, why not? She said, because she should not have to work. I said, Emma, you are 18 years old with no income. If you want money, you need to work for it. That is how the world works. She said other parents just gave their kids allowances. I said I gave you an allowance when you were younger, but you are an adult now. Adults do not get allowances from their parents. Adults work. She said fine, but if she got a job, I had to agree to pay for her car insurance once she bought a car. I said no. She said then she was not applying. I said that is your choice, but do not ask me for money. She said this was manipulation. I said, this is called natural consequences. You want money. Money comes from work. Get a job or do not have money. Your choice. She lasted 4 more days. then came to me asking for $60 to go shopping with friends. I said no. She started crying, said she was so tired of being the only one who could not afford anything. I felt bad, but I did not give in. I said, "Get a job." She screamed that she hated me and went to her room. The next day, she applied to the smoothie shop, got called for an interview 3 days later, got hired on the spot. They wanted her to start the following week. She was supposed to work 3 shifts a week, 5 hours per shift, 15 hours total. She came home and told me with an attitude like she was doing me a favor. I said, "Congratulations." She rolled her eyes. Her first shift was on a Thursday after school. She came home exhausted, complained about everything. The uniform was ugly and uncomfortable. The customers were rude and demanding. Her feet hurt from standing for 5 hours. The manager was bossy. The other workers were annoying. On and on. I listened. I said, "Welcome to working." She said I was enjoying watching her suffer. I said, "I am not enjoying your suffering, but I am glad you are learning what it takes to earn money." Her first paycheck was 2 weeks later. 15 hours at $11 per hour was $165. But after taxes, it was only $137. She stared at that check like she could not believe what she was seeing. She said, "This is it." I worked 15 hours for $137. I said, "Yes, welcome to the working world." She said this was going to take forever to save for a car. I said, "Yes, it will." She said there had to be a faster way. I said you could work more hours. She said she could not. She had school and dance. I said those are your priorities, which is fine, but it means saving for a car will take longer. She looked devastated. She worked at that smoothie shop through the rest of her senior year. She complained constantly, but she kept showing up for her shifts. I was proud of her for that, even though I did not say it. I could see her slowly starting to understand that money was not easy to come by, that the things I had bought her over the years cost real hours of real work. One day in May, about 2 months into her job, she asked me how much I made per hour. I told her. She said, "And you work how many hours per week?" I told her. She did the math. Sat there quietly for a minute. Then she said, "Mom, that is not very much." I said, "I know." She said, "How do you afford our rent and food and everything?" I said very carefully. I said, "I budget every dollar. I do not buy things unless I need them. I sacrifice constantly." She was quiet. Then she asked how much those jeans cost, the ones she was wearing. I told her. Her eyes went wide. She said, "That is almost 11 hours of work." I said, "Yes." She said, "Why did you buy them for me then?" I said, "Because you wanted them, and I wanted you to be happy." She said, "That was stupid. You should have said no." I said, "Yes, I should have, but I did not know how to say no to you." She asked, "Why not?" I said, "Because I wanted you to have a better childhood than I had. I wanted you to have opportunities and nice things. I thought giving you those things was the same as being a good mother. But I was wrong. What you needed was not things. You needed to learn to work, to struggle, to understand the value of money." She said she was starting to understand now, that working at the smoothie shop was making her see things differently. She said her friend, who also worked there, spent her whole paycheck on clothes and makeup. Emma said she could not understand that. She was working too hard to just spend it all immediately. She was saving every check. I asked what she was saving for. She said a car, obviously. I asked how much she had saved. She said about $600 so far. I said, "That is really good, Emma." She said it was going to take forever to get to the 3,000 or 4,000 she needed for a decent used car. I said, "Yes, it will. But you will appreciate that car so much more because you earned it." She said her friends with cars their parents bought did not even take care of them, did not wash them or get oil changes or anything. She said if she bought her own car, she would take care of it because she would know what it took to get it. I smiled. Said, "It sounds like you are learning." She graduated high school in June, worked full-time at the smoothie shop all summer, 35 to 40 hours a week, came home exhausted every day, but her bank account was growing. By August, she had $2,500 saved. She was so proud of that money. She showed me her bank statement like it was a trophy. In late August, we started looking at used cars. She had done research, knew what kind of car she could afford. We looked at listings online, went to a few used car lots. She was practical about it, not looking at anything flashy, just wanted something reliable that would get her to college and back. We found a 12-year-old compact car at a small dealership. It had high miles but had been well maintained. The seller wanted $3,200. Emma looked at her bank account, only had $2,500. She was so disappointed. I watched her negotiate with the seller. She showed him her inspection report from a mechanic she had paid to look at the car, pointed out some small issues, explained she was a college student with limited budget. Could he come down on price? He said 32 was already a good deal. She said she could do $2,600 cash right now. He thought about it, said 28. She said 27, and that was all she had. He agreed. She bought that car with money she had earned, paid for it with a check from her own bank account, got the title transferred to her name, drove it home herself. She parked in front of our apartment, sat in the driver's seat just looking around, running her hands over the steering wheel. She was beaming. I knocked on the window. She rolled it down. I said, "How does it feel?" She said, "Amazing." She said this car meant more to her than any gift I could have bought her because she earned it herself. I said, "I am proud of you, Emma." She said, "Thank you for not giving me your car, for making me work for this." She said at the time she hated me for it, but now she was grateful. We sat in her car in front of the apartment and talked for an hour. She told me about how working had changed her perspective on money, on value, on gratitude. She said she saw her friends spending their parents' money without thinking, and it made her uncomfortable now. She said she could not do that anymore because she knew what work felt like. She said she was sorry for how she acted on her birthday, for the years of not appreciating what I did, for being entitled and ungrateful. She said working minimum wage for 4 months had taught her more than 18 years of school. I said, better late than never. She left for college 2 weeks later, called me the first week and said she got a job in the campus library. I was surprised. Said, "Emma, you do not need to work." Between her scholarship and loans and some help from me, she had enough money. She said she knew, but she wanted to. She said she liked having her own money, liked feeling independent, liked knowing she could handle things herself. I cried after that phone call, happy tears, because I knew she was going to be okay. She had learned the lessons I failed to teach her for 18 years. She learned them in 4 months of working at a smoothie shop. That was 5 years ago. Emma is 23 now, graduated from college last year, got a job at a dance studio teaching kids. Does not make a ton of money, but she is happy. Shares an apartment with roommates. Still drives that car she bought herself at 18. It has 230,000 miles now and barely runs, but she refuses to get rid of it. Says it reminds her of what she is capable of. We talk twice a week on the phone. She visits for holidays. Our relationship is completely different than it was when she was 18. We are closer now. We respect each other. She tells me I am a good mom. I tell her she is wrong, that I made a million mistakes. She says the mistakes do not matter as much as the fact that I was willing to correct them. She said the bus pass and job applications were the best gift I ever gave her. Not because she wanted them, but because they taught her that she was capable of more than she thought. That she did not need me to solve all her problems. That she could work and earn and accomplish things on her own. I think about that birthday morning all the time. The fear I felt putting those applications on the table. The sound of her saying she hated me. The door slamming. I thought I was destroying our relationship, but I was actually saving it. Because the mother who would have given her the car would have continued the pattern, continued saying yes, continued protecting her from reality. And Emma would have gone to college entitled and helpless, would have struggled when real life hit, would have resented me, eventually, for not preparing her. Instead, I gave her a bus pass and job applications, forced her to learn what I should have been teaching all along, and she became a person who could take care of herself, who understood the value of work, who appreciated what she had because she knew what it took to get it. Last month, Emma called me with news. She had saved enough to put a down payment on a small condo, nothing fancy but hers. She was so excited. She said none of her friends from high school owned property yet. Most were still living with parents or spending all their money on things that did not matter. But she had learned to save, to budget, to work toward long-term goals. She said this started with the bus pass, with me saying no when she demanded a car, with forcing her to get a job. She said if I had given her the car, she never would have learned any of this. She would still be expecting things to be handed to her. I said I was terrified that day, scared I was making the wrong choice. She said it was the rightest choice I ever made, even though it felt wrong at the time. We talked for an hour about her condo, about her job, about her life. At the end of the call, she said, "I love you, Mom. Thank you for everything." I said, "I love you too." She said, "No, really. Thank you for saying no. Thank you for the bus pass. Thank you for making me work for things. Thank you for teaching me that I am capable." I hung up and I cried, because 5 years ago, I thought I was losing my daughter by refusing to give her my car. But what I was actually doing was giving her the tools to build a life. A real life that she earned and controlled and was proud of. The bus pass is long expired, thrown away years ago. The job at the smoothie shop ended when she went to college. The car she bought herself is barely running. But the lessons from that birthday morning are still shaping who she is. And I am grateful I found the courage to say no, to put those applications on the table, to withstand her anger and her tears and her accusations, because temporary anger was worth long-term growth. She is 23 now, and she owns property, and she is financially stable, and she is happy. Not because I gave her everything, but because I finally stopped giving her everything and made her earn something herself. That is my story. The story of the bus pass and the job applications. The story of saying no when every instinct said to say yes. The story of a mother who corrected her mistakes before it was too late. And the story of a daughter who learned that the best things in life are not given, they are earned.